Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here driving through Houston where today's project is going to take place, which is going to be bringing fuel in from some oil wells that are just outside of the city. And so before we get into building our project for this video, an important announcement regarding the whole series. I've finally come to a conclusion on the name of the entire region here, and after taking a look at some of the comments, I've decided to go with Brookshire County as the name of the map. Now I believe someone commented this as a recommendation for a city name, but I really liked it as I feel like it does sort of encompass this region quite nicely. However, there are a couple of cities that I am looking to rename on this map. So, for example, this city I think I want to rename, and then this city all the way out in the corner, I think I want to rename this one as well. So I'm still sort of deciding on what names I want for those cities, so keep the suggestions coming, and I'll decide on that when I feel confident with the name. And then one other quick change in terms of how we're doing this playthrough. I did bump up the date speed to 1/8 speed. We were at 1/16, but I felt that was really slow, especially at this early point in the game where we don't have much more than horses and extremely basic steam engines. So I bumped that up so that we can sort of progress through time a little quicker, get money a little faster, and overall just progress at a slightly faster rate. And so a quick rundown of what I'm hoping to achieve in this video. We have this oil well over here just outside of Houston, and I think we're going to move this to an area that's a little bit flatter, probably somewhere down here, and then what we're going to do is bring the oil, most likely by ship, over to this oil refinery, where then it will get dropped off, picked up again by ship, moved over to this fuel refinery, and then from here come back to Houston where the whole cycle can repeat. And this feels like it will probably be our biggest earner yet by far, since pretty much every leg of that trip will be full of resources, and I'm thinking we even share the port for the oil well and Houston itself, so this ship line will virtually never run empty. Now the only complication with this line is right here, the oil refinery. It does take 2 oil to make, or 2 crude oil to make 1 oil. So if we did do this all on one line, after this point the boats will only be traveling half full. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And if this trip isn't profitable while the ship is only half full, we might have to split this into 2 separate lines where one brings oil in, and then there's another line that goes between here and back to Houston, or something else like that where we can better maximize the efficiency of our vehicles. But anyway, I think with that, let's get into getting everything set up just outside of Houston. So our oil wells, our port, and then our road infrastructure, as we'll probably need to clean up a lot of these roads in this area. Alright, so now things are pretty cleared out in this area. Let's first think about where we want our oil industry to go. So we'll come over here, we'll find our oil well, and I think we'll want this close enough that they can... Actually, we'll bring them back here and we'll just simply truck the oil in over here. We'll see sort of how that ends up shaking out. But it'll probably be a similar situation to how we did the farms. It'll just be a pretty short trip to the port, and then from there the boats will take care of it. But otherwise, I think we can go ahead and place an oil well here. Now, I do want to get multiple oil wells in here so that in the future, once things start scaling up, we have the capacity for that. So I think we'll do something like that for now. We'll start off with 2, and then as we continue going, we can maybe add more over here and just detail around that. And so next we'll want to get our cargo harbor in here. We'll go large since this will also end up being the main port for Houston. And I think somewhere in here should be really good for that. We're gonna have to adjust the landscaping, but this I think is a good starting point. So let's quickly come through here and do some light touch-ups with landscaping. I'm not sure how I want this to look once it's scaled up and sort of a proper port, but for now something just as simple as this is fine. We can smooth out these sort of harsher edges and then make this portion a bit deeper right where it meets the dock. And so now that we have this area set up, I think the way I want to do this is get everything set up sort of bare bones. So just simply our road connections made, just so we can start getting a profit. And then once we're making money on this line, we will come back through and detail all of the industries. And so let's get a loose framework for our roads. I know I want this all to be pretty much just a perfectly flat, straight road. I'm not sure where it'll end, so I think this is good enough distance. And then we'll get another road just in front of this port. Again, this road probably isn't final. Once we come back and do detailing, that will probably change. But then we can just come through and quickly finish up this connection. And we're also going to need to connect to the city of Houston, so we might as well do that as well. And now that that's done, we can make sure our other industries are how we want them, get those ports placed, and then we can get everything set up. Alright, so now all of our industries and ports over here are placed how we want them. We can now connect everything up with some truck stations. So we'll start over here. We'll get a truck station over here, and we'll get this pretty far away, but still connected so that it's out of the way once we start detailing. So we don't have to pause while we detail. We can detail, and then once it's finished, we can just transition the bus stop over. And then we'll need another one right here where the oil's going to get dropped off and then the fuel's going to get picked up. So that'll go there. And then lastly, we'll just need an unload stop somewhere that covers all the fuel in Houston. So we'll get this off of the main roads onto this little side street and have that unload stop drop off right there. And then really the last thing we need is the shipyard. So we'll just get this in here wherever's easiest. So probably over here, just like that. And now we can buy all of our trucks and ships and get them starting to go around. Alright, and so we've set everything up and I've let it run for a little bit so that the oil can start to filter through the line. You can see our first bits of fuel are finally starting to show up over here. It's not on its way back to Houston yet, but it is here waiting for the next boat to come and pick it up. And despite not being up to full operation yet, the finances on this line is actually looking pretty promising. As we take a look here, you can see it seems like we're pretty much on track to overcome our expenses probably this financial period, if not the one after that, because by then we'll have the full boat's worth of oil flowing through all of the industries. So if we take a look here at the line rate, our boat line, which is really what's dictating how much fuel and oil we can transport, is at 93. Our truck line coming from the oil wells is at 120, which is a little bit higher than the boat line, but I think I would like to get one more boat here when we can afford it. So whenever we get up closer to 1,000,000, we could probably get another boat on here, and that should get this rate up closer to 120 to match that truck line. And then, of course, we have our route that delivers the fuel into Houston, but that hasn't really done anything yet. The only thing we will need to do is bring up the rate, because, as mentioned before, the oil refinery will essentially cut this rate in half for how much fuel is being delivered. So, realistically, we'll probably want our fuel line rate to be closer to 45.50 once things get going, but we have a little bit of time before we have to get some more trucks moving. Alright, and now we have our first load of fuel coming into our Houston port. So we'll go through and fine-tune all the line rates closer to the end of the video, but now that things are finally looking bright and fuel is starting to flow into Houston, we will start to see some growth here. And while we wait for all that to happen, let's get into detailing all of our industries. we are back here at our Houston port that looks very different than it did moments ago. It is now fully finished up, at least for the time being, and I think it looks really nice and well placed. I think it really ties into especially the time period that we're in. And so let's just go around and take a closer look at everything we've done and maybe even adjust some things, adjust some line rates now that things are flowing and the city of Houston is now growing. As we can see here, if we look at the chart for the city, it's almost doubled in size from when we set up this line, so it can now handle much more fuel coming into the city. And so let's take a look at the oil well first. We only detailed this industry for now. If we ever sort of upgrade our capacity, if we start using a lot more oil, we'll probably detail this one up and then get a few more in here as well. But for now, I think just detailing this one turned out really nicely, and I'm glad we got a chance to use these invisible roads that I found on the Steam Workshop. I think it ties really nicely into these more sort of rural stations where maybe you just have a gravel road or maybe even a lot less noticeable dirt road. And so that's sort of what we did here by painting this gravel right where the horses go, and then you can see it sort of in this station where they would go around and come back through. And then before we head over to the oil refinery and fuel refinery, the Houston port here, as you've seen before, we moved the truck station over here, which has now become pretty much strictly a loading station for the fuel. And then over this side is sort of the unload portion of it. So we have sort of this empty lot here where a lot of the goods and stuff would sit after they get unloaded. So the unload stop is here. The horses get to go around this nice loop and then back out and around. And then over here we have the shipyard. I'd like to maybe come back to this and see if maybe there's a nicer way we could tie this in here, but I think for now it fits pretty nicely. And now moving on to the oil refinery. This didn't get too much work done. I think I want to wait for the whole line to be a lot more productive and this industry to upgrade before we really go into the details of this area, just so we get more of an idea of what the final industry will look like. Since the appearance does change when it updates, but I think the nice little touches we added over here fit quite nicely into the theme of this oil refinery. And then lastly, at the fuel refinery, it's mostly the same. There's not really much we can go off of in terms of expanding the industry when most of it is grass, so we just threw in some small details next to the port here and then sort of neatened up the look with the road over here. So again, once this becomes a lot more useful and upgraded as the appearance changes, we'll come through and upgrade the detailing as well. And so now our money is slowly starting to build up quite a bit more than it was before we got this line up and running. And so I want to get another boat going on this line, as this will make us a bunch of money, so I want to get as much out of it as we can. We saw earlier Houston is only really being supplied about half of what it needs, so getting another boat on this line will definitely help out. And I think we might even be able to go a little bit more and get one more boat to bring us up to 7. And now we'll have to match our line rates to this 195 number. So one quick way we can increase the line rate on a route like this is by shortening the road. So I think we could pull this back maybe 2 road segments and then bring this back a little bit farther. And then this road looks like we've actually run out of money, so hopefully we can get some money in before we sort of lose all of our oil on this line. But once we get that money, here we go, we should be able to just pretty much do that. And I forgot to check the line rate earlier. I think it was closer to 124-ish, 130, but that got it up to 145. And so we need to bring that up by about another 40, 150 units to get us to where we want. So we'll take a look at this, and we'll duplicate as many of these vehicles as we need to get our rate up there. And now with a nice even 40 vehicles, our rate is just about 200. We're at 199. That should be good enough to supply our boats with as much oil as they need. And then as for this fuel line, we'll need to update that rate. And since we're running at about 200, we'll want this line rate up closer to maybe 90 or 95. So whenever we get some money in here quick, when this boat unloads, we should be able to duplicate some of these. And another 6 trucks gets us to 91, which I'll take that number for now. I think that will work out just fine. Okay, and now I think our next goal is going to be getting our loan down as much as possible. If we take a look here at our finances, our loan interest is really taking a hit on our profits pretty much across the board. We were able to get it down by about 5 million, but if we can just keep eating into that, for instance, right now we just got enough to take some more out of that. The more we can eat into our loan, the better off we'll be with our money. Alright, and while we're waiting for our money to build up just a little bit more to pay off our loans, let's just take a look at some of our line statistics and see how those lines are doing. And we can see here our 2 large boat lines are obviously making us the most money, with our grain and food line being the best, getting us just over $1 million. I think that's just due to the amount of boats going on it. I think we can scale up our Houston oil line in a similar fashion, and once we get sort of 8 to 10 boats going on that line, we'll probably easily be making about the same money. But we can see a lot of the ones that are losing us money are still our passenger horse lines, but these numbers are so small in comparison to the tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're making on our other lines that it's really sort of negligible. So I'm pretty happy with how this all looks. Of course, almost all passenger lines are going to be running negative for a while until the cities really build up and we get a significant number of people wanting to move, but it is essential for the city's growth. And we can also take a quick look at our town statistics, and we can see that Allentown is by far our largest city on the map. We can sort by size here, and it looks like Salt Lake City, Houston, and Portland are all sort of around the same size at the moment, although I think Houston's going to continue to grow as we're still supplying fuel to it, and we're not even at full capacity on that yet. So I expect Houston and Allentown to be sort of our largest cities soon, although Salt Lake City and Portland are getting up there as well. And now I think we're finally at a point where we can pay off a good chunk of our loan. We're obviously not going to get anywhere near paying it all off, especially in this video or the next, but getting at least the 3.5 to 4 million that we have off of our loan will save us hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run. So that brings our loan down to a nice even 21 million. And hopefully that'll get our loan interest that sort of gets taken out every financial period down to just under 200,000 or whatever that ends up being. We can actually pay off another 500,000 while we're here. And let's see if we can actually get this down to 200 or 20 million just by waiting a bit longer. And there we are. We were able to get it just down to 20 million. And I think that's a pretty good stopping point for this video. And so before we end off this episode, let's go back and take a look at everything we've done in a much nicer and more cinematic way. And then when we come back, we'll talk about sort of what's next in terms of planning and end the video off there. And so now thinking about what we want to do maybe next episode or sometime soon in the future, I'd like to get away from this corner of the map that we've been developing up pretty heavily and move on to something over on this end. And there's a few potential areas we could take a look at. First of all, we might just extend the road connection from Santa Rosa to Lincoln so that there's a sort of road that private transportation could take. I don't know if we would set up a bus line just because horses are so slow. It probably wouldn't really mean anything at the moment. But there's also some resource chains that we could build up over here. For example, one I've been looking at is tools for Lincoln. We have a lot of that stuff over here, but I think maybe we'll move some of it down into this area since it's a little empty in terms of industries. So maybe we'll take some of the like forest or sawmill industries, bring them down here. There's even an opportunity over here for Santa Rosa for tools. So maybe there's something there. There's also potential, maybe we could do a train line if we set up our sawmill over here, bring the planks over to the tools factory, and then bring the tools back over by train. I think that's probably the most likely next step for this map, just so we can step away from Houston, Portland, and those cities over there, and get a little bit more of a fresher feel on this side of the map. But other than that, I think that's going to be all for this episode. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.